The attic was dusty and untouched, the kind of place where old memories sat buried beneath cobwebs and forgotten holiday decorations. Snoop Dogg hadn't been up there in years, but something compelled him to climb those creaky steps after visiting his childhood home in Long Beach. The house had remained in the family, passed down from generation to generation, and the attic was one of the few places left untouched since his grandmother's passing. As he moved aside faded boxes and moth-eaten blankets, a small wooden chest caught his eye. It wasn't labeled, but he instantly recognized it. He remembered being a child, watching his grandmother open that very box during Christmas, or on nights when she felt nostalgic. It had always been her secret chest, full of old photos, prayer books, and letters she never read out loud. But this time, when he opened it, what he found was different. Inside, nestled between yellowed papers and dried lavender, was a cassette tape. It was labeled in his grandmother's neat cursive, "For Calvin," his real name. Not Snoop, not Dog, not Boss, just Calvin. Snoop sat down right there on the attic floor, holding the tape like it was made of gold. He didn't even know if he had a cassette player anymore. But the moment felt holy. Like his grandmother had left one final message for him to find, only when he was truly ready. His fingers trembled as he ran them over the label. For Calvin, it was so personal, so intimate, the kind of thing that hit harder than any award or sold-out show. Memories flooded his mind. Her voice, her laugh, the way she'd sing hymns in the kitchen while frying catfish. She was the one who kept him grounded, who prayed for him even when he was running wild in the streets. He could almost smell the cocoa butter on her hands. Finding that tape felt like finding her spirit again. He hadn't cried in a long time, but something about this tape cracked the shell around his heart. Snoop carried the box down the attic steps slowly, like it was a fragile relic. He didn't speak much for the rest of the evening. He just stared at the tape. Friends and family around the house noticed the change in him immediately. His mood shifted. He wasn't joking or rapping or vibing. He was quiet, reflective. Something was happening internally. Later that night, he sat in the living room alone. The lights were dimmed, and the only sound was the ticking of the old grandfather clock by the hallway. He set the box on the coffee table and gently took the tape back, into his hands. It was like holding a conversation with the past, a time capsule crafted just for him. He didn't know what he'd hear, but he knew it would change him. Before playing it, he took out an old photo album from the same chest. Page after page showed him growing up under her care. Him at church. Him in his first oversized flannel. Him performing at talent shows while she cheered louder than anyone. That tape wasn't just a message. It was a key to a lifetime of moments he'd never get back. After finding a portable cassette player from a thrift store the next day, he sat alone on his back porch, staring out into the evening sun. His hands were sweaty as he inserted the tape. The click of the play button was louder than it should have been. Then, static, followed by her voice. "Calvin, baby." It was soft, cracked by age, but unmistakably her. He stopped breathing, for a moment overcome with emotion. His eyes immediately welled up, and he leaned back, covering his face. He wasn't ready, but he couldn't stop now. The sound of his grandmother's voice filled the air like incense in a church. Warm, sacred, familiar. Snoop closed his eyes and let the tone of her words wash over him. It was as if she were sitting, right there, across from him, holding his hand like she used to. Her voice was patient, loving, and unhurried. "If you're listening to this, that means I've gone home to the Lord," she said. He felt a knot tighten in his chest. Her words were so calm, so accepting of her passing, that it hurt even more. She spoke about love, forgiveness, and keeping faith. She didn't mention fame, fortune, or success. Just family, just faith, just him. "You've grown into a strong man, Calvin," she said, "but I still pray for your soul every night. Even now I'm praying from heaven." That sentence shattered him. He had built an empire, worked with legends, toured the world, but nothing compared to hearing those words. His tears fell freely now, dripping onto the tape player as he hugged himself, rocking slightly like a child in grief. She continued, There's a light in you that no spotlight can match. Don't forget where it comes from. As her voice crackled through the tiny speaker, she shared old stories from his childhood, like the time he got suspended for rapping in class, or when he gave his lunch to a friend who didn't have one. She saw him, the real him, before the world called him a rapper, a celebrity, a brand. To her, he was always Calvin, always her boy. She reminded him of the little church where they used to go every Sunday. The pews were worn, the choir slightly off-key, but it was there he first learned to express himself. "You used to sing louder than anyone," she chuckled, even if it wasn't always on pitch. That made him laugh through the tears. Even now she could make him smile. There was a long pause in the tape, filled with nothing but the sound of her breathing. Then she whispered, "Don't be afraid to cry, Calvin. Strong men cry. God gave you emotions to feel, not hide." It was like she knew exactly where he'd be emotionally the moment he pressed play. Like the message had waited patiently for years. The last part of the tape was a prayer. She prayed for his health, his children, his peace. "Keep your heart soft, baby," she said. "This world will try to harden it, but God made you tender for a reason." The tape ended with her humming one of her favorite hymns. No final goodbye. Just a song. Just love. He didn't move for a long time after it ended. The sun had set, and darkness wrapped around him like a blanket. That voice from the past had reignited something he didn't know he had lost. A connection. A foundation. A truth. He pressed rewind and played it again. The next morning, Snoop Dogg woke up with puffy eyes and a hollow chest. He hadn't cried that much in years. Not when he lost friends to the streets. Not when his career hit rough patches. But this was different. It wasn't just grief. It was memory crashing back like high tide. Every word on that tape had unlocked a part of his past he'd buried beneath the fame, the weed smoke, and the constant hustle. He walked barefoot around his house, tape still in hand, like it was a compass guiding him. Every room brought back a memory. The kitchen where his grandmother made gumbo, the hallway where she hung his school pictures, the small garden where they once planted tomatoes together. He could almost see her there, wearing her house dress, humming Sam Cooke. He sat down at the dining table and looked around in silence. That table had seen it all. Birthday parties, report cards, late-night talks when he was trying to find his way. "You always come back here," she used to say, "because this is where your roots are." He finally understood what she meant. Later, he pulled out old boxes filled with mementos, letters, school certificates, even mixtapes from before he was Snoop Dogg. There was a letter she had written him after his first album dropped. "I'm proud of you," it said. "But I want you to be proud of yourself not for what you do, but for who you are." He had never opened it until now. He held that letter to his chest, realizing how many times she tried to reach him beyond words. Her lessons were in the way she lived, the way she prayed over his bed, the way she forgave him even when he messed up. She didn't need a stage. Her life was a sermon, and he had been the front-row listener all along. That afternoon, he canceled everything. No interviews, no meetings, no studio sessions. For once, he gave himself permission to be still. He walked through the neighborhood where he grew up, unannounced, hoodie up, just observing. The streets had changed, but the energy hadn't. He was back where it all started, stripped of ego. Kids waved at him, old friends nodded from porches, and elders gave him looks of knowing. Everyone respected Snoop Dogg the icon, but it was Calvin they remembered. The quiet kid who carried notebooks filled with rhymes, who danced at block parties, who helped carry groceries for his grandma without being asked. He stopped by the old church, locked now, but still standing. He sat on the steps for an hour, not saying a word, just listening to the silence. It was there he first sang, first prayed, first believed he could be more. Now he realized he didn't need to be more. He just needed to be whole. Later that night, he played the tape one more time. Her voice felt even closer now. Not like a ghost, but like a guide. He whispered, "I hear you, Grandma. I really hear you now. And for the first time in years, he slept without dreams. Only peace. Snoop Dogg woke up and wrote, not lyrics, not bars, just thoughts, raw and unfiltered. A letter, really, but not to anyone else, to himself, to Calvin Broadus, the boy who sat on the floor next to his grandmother's feet while she read the Bible, the teenager who tried to be tough but cried quietly when he got jumped, the man who turned pain into poetry. He started with, "Dear Calvin, I'm sorry." That one line carried decades of weight. Sorry for forgetting who he was beneath the gold chains and accolades. Sorry for ignoring the voice that told him to slow down, reconnect, and breathe. Sorry for thinking success could heal what only love could touch. He wrote about how proud he was, too. Proud of surviving. Proud of building something out of nothing. Proud of still being here. But also scared. Scared that he had gone too far from home. Too far from the boy who used to believe in things before. The world told him not to. He folded the letter and placed it inside the same box where the tape had been. It wasn't for the world. It was for safekeeping. A reminder. A vow. That no matter where he went, he'd never forget who he was beneath the spotlight. That day, he told his team he wouldn't be taking new offers for a while. "I gotta do something first," he said. "For family." Later, he called his cousins, his uncles, even some folks he hadn't spoken to in years. "Let's get together," he said. "Real quiet, just us." They met in the backyard of his childhood home, with folding chairs, soul music, and plates of food that tasted like memory. Gumbo, cornbread, fried chicken. No paparazzi, no Instagram stories, just family. He brought out the cassette player and told them about the tape. Everyone went silent. Some had known his grandma well. Others only, remembered bits and pieces. But when he hit play, they all listened. No interruptions, no phones. Just her voice filling the air again. When it ended, there wasn't a dry eye. Even the toughest ones sniffled. Snoop looked around and said, "She raised all of us, not just me." Heads nodded. It wasn't just about him anymore. It never had been. One of his cousins pulled out an old gospel CD and played it through the speaker. Everyone sang along, voices cracking but hearts full. That night, under the stars, it felt like his grandmother was right there, swaying with them, watching, smiling. Before they left, he said, "Let's make this a tradition. Once a year, no matter what." And they all agreed. Family first. Forever. After the family gathering, something shifted in Snoop. He realized his grandmother's message wasn't just for him, it was for everyone. There were kids out there who had lost their elders, people who needed reminders of their roots. He felt a calling, not to record a new album, but to tell a different story. He called a director he trusted and pitched the idea. A documentary about his grandmother, her message, and the hidden wisdom passed down through generations of black families. "It ain't about me," he said. "It's about where I came from, who raised me." The director was in immediately. They began gathering footage, old home videos, church services, audio of Snoop and his grandma cooking together. He gave the producers full access to his childhood home, the attic, the porch, even the cassette player. "Keep it real," he told them. "No filters, no scripts, just truth." The crew followed him through Long Beach, filming him as he revisited key places from his youth. The old schoolyard, the record shop where he used to freestyle, the corner store where his grandma used to send him with $1 and a warning. "Don't come back with no candy. Bring bread." He interviewed people who knew his grandmother, church friends, neighbors, the mailman who used to bring her letters from Calvin when he was on tour. Everyone had a story. Everyone remembered her kindness, her strength, her stubborn faith. They called the documentary For Calvin. It wasn't just about a rapper. It was about a legacy, a lineage, a love that transcended death. The trailer alone brought people to tears. Fans said they saw a new side of Snoop, a softer side, a realer side. He narrated the whole thing himself. No ghostwriters, no flashy lines. Just him, his voice raw, sharing memories that shaped him. "People think I got here by talent," he said in the film. "But talent didn't raise me, love did." The documentary premiered at a small theater in LA, filled with family, close friends, and local kids. No red carpet, just folding chairs, popcorn, and tissue boxes. When it ended, there was a standing ovation, and not for Snoop. For the woman whose voice had started it all. He stood at the front and said, "This ain't the end of the story, it's the beginning." The crowd knew he meant it. After the documentary's premiere, interviews began flooding in. Everyone wanted to talk to Snoop about his grandmother, the tape, and that vulnerable side he had finally revealed. For years, people had seen the cool, unshakable Snoop Dogg, the icon. But now, they were witnessing something deeper. A man mourning, remembering, and healing. He didn't shy away from it. In fact, he leaned into it. During an appearance on a late-night show, the host asked him, "Were you embarrassed to cry on camera?" Snoop shook his head and answered calmly, "Real men cry. My grandma told me that. You hold it in too long, it'll break you in other ways." The audience fell silent. He wasn't joking. He was speaking from a place most men never show on. TV. He began using his platform to talk about masculinity and emotion. In podcasts, he shared how bottling up grief had nearly broken him during tough times. Losing Tupac, navigating fame, watching friends go to prison or worse. But that tape unlocked something. It gave him permission to feel without shame. On social media, he posted photos of his grandma with captions like, "She raised a king," and "Cried again today. That's okay." The comments were flooded with messages from fans thanking him for normalizing emotion. Men wrote about crying for the first time in years after watching the documentary. Mothers shared how their sons opened up to them again. He was becoming a different kind of role model, one that embraced softness without sacrificing strength. His music started reflecting that change too. Lyrics became more introspective, more grounded. He wasn't just rapping about hustling and partying anymore. He was rapping about healing, legacy, and love. When he visited a high school in Compton, one student asked, "What do you wish you could tell your younger self?" Snoop paused, then said, "Don't be afraid to cry, dog. Your tears are your truth." That line went viral, not because it was flashy, but because it was real. He even teamed up with a mental health nonprofit to start a campaign called Let It Out, aimed at encouraging black men to express their feelings without fear of judgment. Billboards went up with his face and the phrase, "strong enough to feel." The message resonated far beyond music. In interviews, he often circled back to the tape. "That was her last gift to me," he'd say. Not just her voice, but her permission. To slow down, to break, to rebuild. His grandmother had always told him he was special, not for his fame, but for his heart. Now he was finally honoring that truth. As the documentary gained traction, something unexpected happened. Fans began sharing their own tapes, letters, and stories about their grandmothers. It was like a movement had started, one grounded not in trendiness, but in tenderness. Snoop began receiving packages from all over, photos of grandmas, voice, recordings, even family recipes. He read every single letter. Some were typed. Others were handwritten on old stationery that smelled like lavender or mothballs. One teen wrote, "I never met my grandma, but after watching your story, I feel like I did." Another said, "I didn't cry when mine passed, but now I did. Thank you for that." It wasn't just emotional. It was cultural. Grandmothers, especially in Black and Latino communities, had always been spiritual anchors, storytellers, protectors. But they were often overlooked in mainstream narratives. Snoop had unintentionally started a national conversation about their role in shaping identity. He went on a radio show in Atlanta and said, "Everybody talk about kings and queens, but they forget who raised the royals. It was Grandma." The host got choked up. The phone lines lit up. One caller broke down on air, remembering the day his grandmother took him in when his parents couldn't. That's when Snoop had another idea. He partnered with a network to produce a limited series called The Grandma Effect. Each episode featured a different celebrity sharing how their grandmother shaped their life. From athletes to activists to actors, the stories were raw, real, and healing. Snoop hosted the first episode and dedicated it to his own. He wore her favorite color, lavender, and ended the show by playing a clip of her humming that same gospel tune from the tape. The screen faded out as he said, "This is for the women who prayed for us when we couldn't pray for ourselves." The response was overwhelming. Viewers began hosting grandma watch parties, inviting family members over to eat traditional food, share memories, and watch together. Hashtags like "Such a Grandma Effect" and "For Calvin" started trending every week. Even major publications took note. One headline read, "Snoop Dogg isn't just a rapper, he's a cultural archivist now." Another said, "The most emotional show on TV was created by the coolest man in hip-hop." And through it all, Snoop remained grounded. In one behind-the-scenes clip, he looked at the camera and said, "She always told me to give something real to the world. I think I finally did." Weeks after the series aired, a cousin called Snoop and said, "I found another tape." His heart skipped. Could it be? Another message from his grandmother? She had recorded more than one? The cousin explained it had been tucked in a Bible at the back of a storage trunk. No label, just the cassette itself. Snoop flew across the country that same day. He didn't wait. The moment he got his hands on it, he locked himself in a hotel room and hit play. This time, her voice sounded a bit younger, less frail. It was a different tone, less goodbye, more conversation. She spoke about her dreams for the family, how she wished they'd stay united, lift each other up, protect their roots. "There's gonna come a time when the family will scatter," she said, "but don't let it stay that way." It was like she had predicted the future. Cousins not speaking, old wounds lingering. Her words hit deep. She also talked about legacy, not just leaving behind money or fame, but wisdom. "Make something the babies can hold on to," she said. A song, a story, a seed. That one line stayed with him for days. He couldn't stop thinking about it. So he wrote a song, not for charts, not for radio, just for her. He sampled her voice from the tape and layered it over a slow, soulful beat. The chorus was simple. "You prayed me here." When it dropped, fans wept. It wasn't just a track, it was a tribute. He surprised the world by performing it live, at a small venue with only 100 people. No hype, no announcement, just a mic, a spotlight, and a stage dressed like a living room. Old couch, framed photos, a pot of fake flowers just like hers. He ended the show by handing out cassette-shaped USBs with the track on it. "Keep it close," he said. That night, the internet exploded. Artists began reaching out, wanting to collaborate. Not on bangers, but on tributes. A famous singer sent him a verse she wrote about her grandmother. A gospel choir offered to sing live if he ever performed it again. He realized this was bigger than music. It was ancestral. He took that second tape and placed it next to the first one in a custom glass case in his studio. Above it, he framed her quote, "Make something the babies can hold on to." And every time he walked past, he whispered, "I got you, Grandma." Months passed, and the impact of Snoop's journey only deepened. People weren't just inspired, they were transformed. Schools used clips from the documentary in classrooms. Churches played the tribute song during Mother's Day. And in dozens of homes, cassette players were dusted off just to hear the voices of loved ones again. Snoop decided to take it further. He launched a foundation called Voices of Legacy. Its mission: to help families record stories, recipes, prayers, and wisdom from their elders before those voices are gone. Mobile booths were set up in barbershops, libraries, and even prisons. Each one came with a simple question: what do you want future generations to know? At the first event in Long Beach, an 83-year-old woman recorded a message for her great-granddaughter. "You're braver than you think. Don't wait to love yourself." Snoop stood nearby, holding back tears. He had created a movement rooted not in beats, but in belonging. When asked if he would ever release another mainstream album, he smiled and said, "Maybe. But this is the album of my life." He wasn't talking about tracks. He was talking about voices, about stories, about legacy carved into sound. One evening, sitting on the same porch where he first played the tape, he pressed play again. Her voice, still crisp, still loving, still there. And for the first time, he didn't cry. He smiled. Because grief had become gratitude. Because her message had been shared with the world. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he whispered, "You never left me." Then he stood, turned up the volume, and let her song play loud. Neighbors heard it. Kids heard it. Birds heard it. The city heard it. And somewhere, she did too.